Just out of curiosity, the way you structured this, you practiced today and then a couple of days off, with the 3 days off, what led you to decide to do it that way?
Wanted to bring him in and not come with the back-to-back coming up. Didn't want to go a bunch of days in a row. Obviously, usually after a game, we give him the day off, so we just came in a little later today. Get what you need for some of the veterans, starters, and then the other young guys, as we're trying to get Derek and Daniel acclimated. All these script sessions and are invaluable. So wanted to do it that way. Tomorrow's off, and Saturday we'll touch, briefly on some Minnesota stuff, being that it's the early game on Sunday. So didn't like the idea of doing 2 days in a row with the back-to-back coming up.
You mentioned getting Daniel and Derek up to speed. It's been, I think, 6 weeks, right, since the deadline, but the way the NBA season is, I know it's hard to get guys up to speed. How beneficial is it to have a 3-day stretch where you can just go through a bunch of stuff with guys like that and kind of catch up?
Yeah, it's been huge for everybody. I think coming out All-Star break, really focus on those 22. You have to do some things in game, based on standings and everything you're trying to take care of, but at the same time, get those guys acclimated. So not just the practice sessions, we've made it a point to get them in certain times in the game, get them with certain rotations and that we want to look at going forward. And so as you see with our starters and normal team, took some time early in the season, and it's not going to be second nature to these guys as well, but they're getting better every game, and you can kind of see that over the last 5 or so games coming off the road trip. So.
When you first got here and we're trying to build out the defense, you and Marcus seem to have a lot of communication throughout the game and a real strong partnership. How much did you have to learn to be willing to trust the players to help run the system and design the system? And how is that balance between you coaching the team and letting guys like Marcus run the defense evolved over the year? Yeah,
I think just having a defensive-minded point guard who kind of sets the tone every night. And we've had a lot of discussions about matchups and certain things they see and how they, I encourage them to speak up and shoot around about how they want to guard certain things. We come with our ideas, and I think coaches, we come with plan A, B, C, D, and sometimes the players like, adjustment at times more so than the starting coverage. And so giving them freedom to talk about it. They're the ones out there guarding it. But to have him, kind of be a coach on the floor as far as defensively, it's been huge. But I think the buy-in from the guys has been there all year. Marcus is a huge part of that because of what he does for the team naturally. And so he's been great all year. He, offensively, defensively, being a veteran voice in there, it's like another coach on the floor.
And when you were designing the defensive scheme, how much of it was just ideas you had developed over the years versus kind of looking at how this team had operated and the personnel you have now and figuring out what you want to do versus what they have done well?
Yeah, it was things I've seen and done over the years, but nothing to do with what they had done previously, honestly. It was more traditional coverages in the past. And, what I looked at was the size of the wings, the physicality of the guards, and the versatility of the bigs. And so I feel like in cover 1 through 5, a lot of these guys, and how disruptive we could be with our size and length and versatility. And then you add some wrinkles to it, unconventional matchups and, moving Rob around at times, but just the versatility of the group. And like I said, just because Jason and Jalen are, 30 and 25 point scorers, they don't always get the label as defenders, but they're very willing on that end. And that's why we don't have a lot of flaws, is because of non-defenders, like that's Rob and that's Marcus's reputation. The other guys defend extremely well too. And you add Grant to the mix and Derek now, and, guys that we had, Jay Rich and even Payton, being undersized, he still has that dog mentality. So just looking at the group overall, you felt like we could be really solid defensively. And that's what I kind of formulate in my mind based on how we're guarding.
I assume you probably discussed this with the front office to some degree coming into the season. I'm curious what their feedback was, because they made a lot of personnel moves over the years to bring in a lot of long versatile wings that could do an all switching scheme. They just never had the health and the time to kind of pull it off.
Yeah, in the interview process, you give your ideas of what you see the team becoming, and looking at the personnel and just some things I saw in the different stops I've made across last few years. And so you give your kind of goal and what you see the team becoming, and so it fit into my plan of what I saw the group being. And so it's really come to fruition as far as defensively, and then the offensive part, as we all know, is improving as well.
Just prior to the trade deadline, you guys, you, Brad, both said, we need shooting. You traded Dennis with the confidence that Peyton was going to be able to fill those minutes. How much has he filled that shooting gap that you guys perceived back then?
Yeah, he's obviously one of our best shooters and has always been that. So moving him into that spot, it was just a matter of opportunity, as I've mentioned, and him learning to play on and off the ball, do some different things than he's done. But more so than, we're always looking at shooting. I think us improving our numbers and getting back to career averages was just as important. And then offensively playing the right way, moving the ball and getting us open shots. So it works hand in hand. I think we had better shooters than it showed, obviously, in the start of the season. And you've seen that recently, but changing our style of play to some extent and more ball movement, less isolation, and getting guys wide open shots will always pay off. And so it's a combination of both. If we could find some, great. If not, we felt we had a good enough stable of shooters in the house.
I know you've known him for a long time, but were you at all surprised by just how deep he pulls up?
Peyton?
Yeah.
No, I've seen him since high school. I watched him, win 4 state championships, and then watched him at Oregon and saw him during the pandemic when I went back to Portland, was in the gym with him and watched what he was doing after college. So not at all. I've watched his growth and progression throughout his career. And the thing with him is his mentality was always there. The confidence was always going to be there. It was just a matter of opportunity. And, you even saw it last year. I would talk to him when I played against him, and he's always added to his game. And a piece of that is stretching the floor, extending the floor. You had that tremendous range at Oregon. And so not surprised at all. It's just, like I said, him learning how to play off the ball is just as valuable to him because of Jason, Jalen, some of the creators, and his shooting ability.
There's times in the past where the Celtics were watching the game, but the bench guys like an opera. They were just sitting there, very polite, not standing up, not really cheering, or even the bad teams that they were playing had guys at the end of the bench going. But this team seems to be doing the exact opposite and has that chemistry.
Yeah.
What have you had to do with that chemistry, or are you letting them say, hey, y'all grown men, y'all figure out how to get along with each other?
Yeah, you let them be who they are. I was more of a reserved player, but if that's who they are and they cheering their teammates on, obviously we encourage that. The one thing I think that's become contagious is their on the court play, and that carries over to the bench. So you see Payton in doing well, Marcus and the starters are in there, encouraging them and cheering them on. And so it's trickled down. I think the unselfishness on the floor is carried over to the bench, and obviously winning breeds a lot of that. And so guys are really happy for each other. And I think that's the big sign of growth for us, is that everybody is on the same page, and it's becoming contagious, trickling down. So we love the energy overall, guys rooting for each other, happy to see each other's success.
How critical is that when your teammates on the court or off the court, like on the bench in the fourth quarter last night, Robert and Marcus were cheering on Peyton? Like how important is that when you see your teammates, still into the game, even though they're done for the night?
Yeah, it's huge. I think it shows a connected group, a group that enjoys each other. And, you look at a guy like Marcus, career high assists, but, he scored 4 or 5 points last night, but impacted the game tremendously. But as well as he's doing with 9 assists in the first quarter, Peyton comes in and has a great stretch, and he's totally fine with that. And it's all about the team and what we're doing on the court. So that's just an example of him doing well, Peyton coming in doing well. He's not rushing to get back in to get stats or worried about himself. And, 5 points, 13 assists, he's just as happy with that. And a 25-point win is, scoring 25 or 30.
Are you honestly saying you haven't worked on your air guitar with Malik Fitz? Practicing at all?
I barely see what he does down there, but I've heard.
With Derek, obviously he made a couple of shots, but even when he was missing shots, it seemed like he was still shooting threes just within the flow of the offense. I guess, is that just one of those things where you just tell them to keep shooting just because they are good shots?
Yeah, and it's very similar to what we had earlier in the season where we were getting wide open looks. You're not going to pass those up. Yeah, you encourage guys to shoot those and understand that the numbers are going to even out eventually. And so His numbers this year to date aren't career averages. And with our guys, we encourage him because he's going to get more open looks and playing off these guys. And then the balance of him driving and making a play or taking the shot is up to him, and he understands that part. So our thing is to encourage him to be aggressive. We understand how important he is for us going forward. And so teams in general are going to show crowds on Jason and Jalen. Everybody else has to be ready to play, make a play or shoot. And Derek's in the same category.
Thank you, Coach.
Jalen's eyes lit up last night when we were talking about you guys are a game. No, a game and I wasn't going to ask about the retrograde. A game and a half out of first place. Do you know what the retrograde is? Anyways, could you have imagined you guys, where you were in the standings before January 6th to now have a chance to be at the top of the Eastern Conference?
We've obviously taken a huge jump. I think I've mentioned quite a few times, be encouraged by where we were at when we weren't fully healthy or closing out games. And so you saw glimpses of our defense. You saw offensive execution at times, and it was a matter of closing out. So the one thing we always had optimism about was that we were building big leads or beating good teams. We had some bad losses as well, but getting those leads on the main teams, although we lost a few, without a full roster, you still were getting those leads. It was a matter of closing out. And so defensively and getting our full lineup back and put guys back in their spots on the bench. And so you felt good about that going forward. It was just a matter of closing those out. And obviously when we take a step offensively and defensive like we had, you're kind of seeing the results. But it's a great run we've been on, and 8 to go, we still want to get better.
Is that what gave you faith? Rob told us a story that he saw you in the kitchen one day and you said, don't worry about it, we got this. And Jason has said that as well.
Yeah, that we were going to figure it out because, like I said, we didn't ever really get blown out. I mean, there was a Brooklyn game early and maybe the Phoenix one in Phoenix on that long road trip where we felt we didn't play well. But for the most part, we were either losing leads or very competitive against the best teams. And so you feel good about that going forward. And a lot of times it was without the full roster. And so that's where the optimism came in. If we could tweak a few things, improve on our fourth quarter offense, which we have tremendously, and then continue to guard the way we did defensively, we knew the results could come. And so you're starting to see that. And like I said, it's all contagious. Winning is fun and contagious, and our guys just want to keep that going and improve going into playoffs.
Thank you. I can ask about the retrograde.